Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to a viewer replay, and this is the IS-5 being driven by Coins 2014. You don't see these around very much, and that's because they were quite difficult to get. It was a reward tank, or a prize, maybe that's a better way of saying it, for participating in one of the Clan Wars campaigns, and I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't the first of these reward vehicles that they put in. The M60 was one of them, and the VK7201 was another. I think this is the most recent one, but I can't be quite sure. Now, the thing that makes this interesting is that unlike the M60 and the VK, which were not premium vehicles, you could put basically any same class crew in them. This actually was a premium vehicle given out as a reward, so it makes premium credits as well as being a crew trainer, which is rather nice. In terms of its capabilities, well, it's not too dissimilar from the IS-3. In fact, the armor is probably better than the IS-3 because it's basically an IS-8, at least in terms of its hull. The turret armor layout is a little bit different, but it still looks rather similar, and the pike nose with the extra 10mm of armor means that at tier 8 it's rather nice. Now, as you can see here, it does get regular matchmaking, and when you look at the gun designation, you get a slight sinking feeling because you think, oh, it's one of the D25 Ts, but actually what they've done in order to make it competitive for having full +2 matchmaking is they have swapped AP ammo, which would ordinarily be 175 average pound, with APCR, which has 221 average pound, so a little bit less than the IS-3, but not like by much. It's what, 5 less? So for a tier 8, you know, it's a perfectly usable gun. The handling is, I think, less good than the IS-3, although the aim time is better. The mobility is pretty decent. I think it's got exactly the same engine and power to weight as an Elite IS-3, although I don't think it traverses quite as well. So all in all, it seems like a fairly balanced tier 8 Russian heavy tank, but it does have pretty good armor. Now, as for this battle, well, as you can see, it is a tier 10 game, as I've said, and it's kind of interesting because the majority of both teams are actually tier 8s, so it's good and it's bad, because as a tier 8 you're still going to have plenty of things that you can potentially hurt, but if one of the tier 10s turns up, well, that might be more problematic. And as for Coins' team, well, half of their tier 10s, well, nearly half actually, no, it is half, they've got 4 tier 10s. Half of their tier 10s have gone along the J line, the IS-7 and the T110E4. Now, there is one RT per team, but maybe those two figured, and I can't remember if they're platooned or not, but maybe they figured they would just make an aggressive push along that line. However, the middle area where Coins is now is arguably one of the more important areas of the map. Because from here, I mean, this is kind of like the choke point between the north and the south halves of the map, and the fact that they don't have any tier 10s here is literally just Coins and this M103. Even if there weren't tier 10s in the mix, they would still be outnumbered. Now, they do have artillery backing them up, which is going to be useful, but it's still just automatically not a good situation to be in. And as we see, yes, that is the enemy E100 pushing around the south, which Coins does notice, and at this point he takes a bit of a risk because we know the Waffenträger's back there, we know that the Jägeru might be back there as well, but it's the lesser of two evils. I mean, if he falls back towards his own cap, there is no firepower to support him from there, and so the E100 just could murder him at his leisure. So instead he's trying to get more towards his friendlies. Now, the M103 not paying quite the same amount of attention, not reacting in time, and unfortunately he's just going to get murderized fairly quickly. Being in this position also does give Coins an opportunity to put some hurt into these tanks that think they're going to go round and tackle the M103 alongside the E100. But, of course, to do that, they've got to get past the firepower of Coins' team. Now, the M103 has died, and Coins just looking for a shot there. He could have had the side of the turret. That might have been a better shot to take, but he was obviously a bit worried about just pinging his shell off. And in common with a lot of the Russian heavies, this doesn't get a lot of ammo. It's only 30 rounds of that 122mm ammo. I think the IS-8 is the same. I can't remember. The IS-4 definitely is. So there's a lot of these higher tier Russian heavies where you can't afford to be spamming a lot of wasteful shots. You have to be quite careful because you only have so many shells to spare. So we are not in a good position, really. 4-9. The IS-7 that went south is now basically alone down there. And it is basically a scrabble to hold on to the positions that they do have. Now this is not ideal where Coins is because their rears are basically open to attack. If there were tanks in kind of G3, for example, you can kind of fire up into this position. It might not be G3, it might be slightly further down, but it's possible. They've also got that E100, they've got a 5100 that's poking around here. And there we go, that trades a bit of health to get that guy. But fortunately their artillery takes out the E100. Now that's what I was saying about the possibility of being shot from behind, because the Batchat puts one into him, also kills that FV, and, well, he's able to take out the 5100, but he is now rather low on health. And it's still 7-11. I mean, the count is very much against them. Now you can see that IS-7 still has quite a lot of his health left. This is not really what you want out of somebody in a top tier. I mean, if their intent was to really push round, it stalled badly, and that guy just got stuck down there. He's now in serious danger of being mobbed. Coins, meanwhile, well, he's still in the fight, but he's the only tier 8 that's left alive, and it's not an ideal position to be in because he doesn't really have the health to take a lot of hits now. Now he's struggling slightly with his gun depression there. I mean, he had to poke out quite far to take that shot, but it's a Russian heavy tank. The IS-8, the IS-3, the IS-7, the IS-4, they're all exactly the same. You don't play Russian heavies for their gun depression. Meanwhile, he spots exactly what is on the minds of these two players. But fortunately for him, they are both low enough health that, well, he was able to easily get the AC-48. He might low roll on the T-44, but doesn't. At least not sufficiently to not kill him with one shot. Now they were hoping to take him by surprise, and it didn't work out because he was paying attention to what was going on around him. And that is absolutely key to doing well in World of Tanks, is to be paying attention to the minimap. And it really helps if you have the minimap traces turned on. Even if you're not using mods these days, you can enable that feature in the vanilla client. And I highly recommend you do it, because being able to see where somebody was last spotted can sometimes give you a clue as to their intentions. And sometimes people are still going to take you unawares. But a lot of this game is making educated guesses based on what people are doing at any given moment. And so, absolutely, it is important to pay attention to what's going on around you. And Coins has been doing that very well indeed. So the IS-7 is still alive. The STB went to his aid. We have the artillery having made a couple of important kills. Coins, meanwhile, is on his 5th kill, and it is now just down to enemy artillery and that Jagdpanzer E100. So they have basically been able to dig their heels in and stop the enemy team from really advancing any further. And it looked like they were in a pretty bad position because the remaining enemy tanks were all kind of I don't know. I mean, they tried to go for the IS-7, and I guess the IS-7 was because he was acting as a focal point. The STB was then able to do some damage, and of course the IS-7 itself is a very tough tank. So although he wasn't in a particularly great spot, it kind of worked out for him. Now, that artillery was, well, he was anticipating somebody coming searching for him in C1. Wasn't anticipating being spotted here, though. And at this point, it is just looking for that Jaegeru, and guess what? Coins has just found him with his face. It's kind of surprising that he was able to get all the way around there and didn't spot the Jaegeru, and the fact that the Jaegeru didn't spot him as he was climbing around to the east of that guy. It was actually the artillery that lit him up that alerted the Jaegeru to his presence. Well, I don't know, the vagaries of the spotting system in this game sometimes. Maybe the Jaegeru was not even trying to spot through bushes. Maybe he was just just hiding, hoping that they would cap. I don't know. But it's come down to this. I mean, potentially he's a one-shot for the IS-7. If he's foolish enough to go forward for the IS-7, that makes his lower front plate completely exposed. So he doesn't want to do that. But he's also got artillery firing at him. And I don't think he's in a particularly arty safe spot, although where he is obviously making it a little bit tough for arty to get him. Now the STB does an odd thing. He comes down to this middle area instead of going up onto the sniper perch, whatever you want to call it, the high ground, where he could easily fire down onto the Jaegeru. And that makes life a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. I mean, if he'd been up there, he would have been able to get side shots all day long. If the guy was distracted, the IS-7 could have popped over and taken a shot at him. But as it is, we're going to have a bit of an anticlimactic ending, because it looks like the guy's going to make a getaway. And he's backing up, and then artillery gets him. So okay. But it was still, despite the fact that Coins didn't make it through the entirety of the match, it was still a really good match for him. And despite the top tiers being a little bit derpy, the IS-7 in particular, I mean the mediums I think were reacting better, and the FV did come to the middle, but I mean he was the star of that show. A top gun, over 1500 base XP, 4300 damage. I mean the STB did very well as I said, and the IS-7 only 2300 damage for all that. So yeah, it's just one of those games where it came down to just a couple of players really digging their heels in, and the STB was able to really make use of the IS-7's position and farm a lot of damage and kill some critical tanks that way. Artillery helped out at critical points, but to do well in that kind of matchmaking, I mean, it just shows you the importance of really being aware of what's going on around you in World of Tanks. And yeah, when you're bottom tier like that, you are still kind of more dependent on your teammates than you would want to be, but it's still possible to do well, to contribute greatly in this case to the outcome of a battle. So there we go, that's the IS-5. If you ever see one on the battle, don't get mad if it's just firing APCR over and over at you, because that's the standard ammo. And you sometimes see people even getting confused about that with the T-71, say, where it is the standard ammo. So yeah, it's an interesting machine. I mean, it's not that tough, but it's still pretty good for tier 8, considering it's an IS-8 hull but a tier lower, and a very tough turret indeed. So if you see one of these, you know, somebody probably had to work reasonably hard to get it. They had to at least be in a clan that was doing the Clan Wars events to get it. So yeah, I would treat them with respect, and especially if you see Coins here, because he clearly knows what he's doing. So I hope you enjoyed this look at a slightly more rare tank, and if you did, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.